There you are, Calypso haters.
I've been waiting for this moment, for the perfect time to strike. Now that Vengeance Saga's out, that's when our views collide. I've got a reputation, I've got a channel to uphold, so I can't let you go yapping, or the world will think I'm cold. Now get in the comments. Get in the comments. It'll raise our engagement so high, our subscriber count will rise. Get in the comments. Get in the comments.
What are you doing?
Defending the epic, the musical version of Calypso.
Uh-huh. Can we start the Vengeance Saga now, please?
Yeah. Calypso haters, I will have my vengeance. So it's been a while. It's been a long time since I've done something that stupid, and it's a lot of fun to get back and do it again. However, I must say, in my travels, I've become a mess. But I got this sick-ass coat. I love my coat, but I'm gonna go fix my hair before we continue. So it's finally well, actually, we should say it's finally out. We're finally getting around to reviewing it. But the Vengeance Saga is out. The second last saga of the whole musical. The end is near for Epic the Musical, and I don't know what I'm gonna do after the next release. Like, I feel like there's gonna be an emptiness, a vacancy where there was something that I loved so much, and it's just gonna be something that I can't do anymore. Like, it's all gonna be out. It's all gonna be reviewed. There'll be nothing more. All I'll have is just to, I don't know, listen back to it over and over again like everyone else. And Jorge has also talked about future musicals, about the Iliad and stuff like that, but even then it's not gonna be the same, you know? What do I do with all these feelings? They'll have nowhere to go. It'd be like Calypso, left alone on an island. And that's how you do a segue. You know, I feel sorry for whoever's first time watching the show is when the musical is put into like a whole show from beginning to end with no breaks in between except for the interlude between Act 1 and 2, because my heart would not be able to withstand it. Let us remind you, we were going straight from God Games into this, and Not Sorry for Loving You absolutely broke my heart. Calypso haters, pack your bags and just go, because this hit me like a damn truck. The song goes ahead and puts the initially like antagonistic force of Calypso, of her keeping Odysseus trapped on the island, in a more sympathetic light. This song really gives us a deep dive into all the struggles that Calypso has had in the 100 years she's been living alone on this island. The song begins with the familiar music of Calypso's island, but far more somber now. And then Calypso mentions that she's coming along from a separate place on the island to visit Odysseus. So even though he's trapped on the island, she seems to have respected his space and given him his own place to live. And the line that I absolutely adore is when she says that you weren't mine to save, showing that she's trapped Odysseus on this island not only to protect him from Zeus, but from Poseidon as well. Don't forget how dangerous the gods are. And she was keeping him on her island not only for protection, but for 100 years since she was born. She's been completely alone on the island. She had no friends, nothing at all except for the sky and sun. So for her to have Odysseus wash up on the shore, it was like a gift was sent to her to free her from her isolation. And for 7 years, she tried so very hard to believe that was true, but Odysseus is a married man, and a very dedicated married man as well, as we're going to see later on in this saga. We can't forget to mention her girl boss attitude as she shuts down the main protagonist, not even letting Odysseus get his own verse. This is her last time to speak and share her feelings that Odysseus has ignored over these last 7 years, and now she's gonna make sure that he is listening.
Calypso, let me speak.
And speak she does. As the animatic from our previous Calypso animator, Gigi plays, and as Wangui gives a performance that just encaptures how it feels to be overwhelmed by frustration, sadness, and all these feelings that have nowhere to go. I'll let Brandon tell you how that hit him.
But just before we hop into the animatic that Sean mentioned made by Gigi, there is one that actually comes just before it. The intro animatic to this saga, made by Tododokii, which I've probably already borrowed for the intro of this video. However, it does continue on. Panning up from this bird's eye view of the shore, we are met with a Miyazaki shot, otherwise known as a feet-centric shot, which neither are real terms as we actually pan upwards as we see Odysseus sat facing the horizon, and Calypso stood worried in the background. Both of them are bathed in this gorgeous colour palette, which is designed to represent the golden hour, or sunset basically, as we are transitioned away from this short intro animatic into some B-roll. Additionally, while making this video, Jorge has actually released the concept videos that he has sent to the artists, so I'll also be going over those. So, very simply, the reference video that Jorge sent Tododokii for the first animatic is designed to show the movement of the camera. The only other thing I'll note is that in these videos, Jorge uses the multi-joint Action Titan 13 as reference for the people. Yes, I'm adding that detail in because they're all over my YouTube Shorts feed when I'm doing absolutely nothing except doom scrolling, but it's a cool detail either way. But going into the animatic made by Gigi that Sean mentioned, we start with a very quick over-the-shoulder shot, seeing Odysseus looking at Calypso as she starts to break down during the process of this song. And then we cut to this medium, almost full-length shot centered around Calypso, as we get 4 rotations of a hero shot, stopping every time Calypso gets to the end of her line. I'm not the music man, I don't know what that's called in music. And as we get these spinning 360 hero shots of Calypso, we are pulling closer and closer, feeling her emotions and just how sad this song actually is. And this continually spinning shot, which is wonderfully animated by the way, is broken up by Odysseus saying, "Love you," which is heart-wrenching when he reveals that it's not in the way that she would want him to. And then we cut to this over-the-shoulder, zoom out, somewhat also like pull focus shot of Calypso, and then Odysseus as the framing zooms out, putting Calypso behind him in his past as he walks away. And Calypso is left there singing, "Why did I fall in love with you?" Which I think we can almost all relate to in some way or another. And then as we get the rest of these shots going further and further away before we're just focusing on Odysseus, and Calypso is nothing more than a silhouette in the background, teeny tiny. We cut to Odysseus leaving on his raft, now alone in the frame, cutting back to Calypso, who is also alone, showing that they are to never share a frame again. And we leave this heart-wrenching animatic off with 2 silhouette establishing shots mixed in with a close-up of Calypso crying, seeing that the one person she's ever known in her entire life leave. God, I'm with Sean. I don't know the original story of Calypso. I just know this one. And the Calypso hate is unjustified, okay? I know she did some probably pretty bad things in the original story. But in this one, take me, Calypso, take me.
And then he just leaves on a raft. He just goes. He leaves her like that. He just goes, "I love you, but not how you want me to." And hearing Calypso saying that she hates that she fell in love with him, it's just, how do you relate to a goddess? Unreciprocated love. It's a tale as old as time. I'm gonna need a minute after that.
600 men.
So as we head out with Odysseus on his lone raft, we hear a lone guitar playing as he sings the tune from Full Speed Ahead, which Jorge very cleverly shows just how alone he is by leaving absolute silence where his crew would have sang. How am I to fill this gap of loneliness after we've left my second favorite character behind on her island?
All you have to do is not open this bag.
Le gasp! He is here, darlings.
Well, it's a little bit dangerous, my friend.
Indeed he is, and the first animatic we get of Dangerous is made by Samsational Arts, which I believe is the first time Samsational has made an animatic for an epic release. We start this animatic off with a close-up of Odysseus, framed very similarly to how I'm framed right now, before pulling out with the sky pulling out further than Odysseus, representing that he's still on that lone raft, and we get this medium shot of Odysseus reacting to hearing Hermes' voice. Which is honestly kind of the exact same way I would react to hearing a god's voice out of nowhere. As we pan side to side following Odysseus' eye line, trying to find out where the fuck Hermes is, we see that a shadow starts to be cast over Odysseus' face as he looks up. We pan with his eye line, revealing our boy Hermes as he lays there in the sky giggling, doing quite a floaty flip. And not just floaty as in he's literally floating. I mean, the animation style for this animatic is very floaty. Or cartoony is a very good way to put it. Especially with Hermes, we see slight exaggerations with him stretching and squishing to give him kind of this godly feel. And so as he flies back down, we get this panning shot going from the left of the screen to the right of the screen, going behind Odysseus as he enters the frame. And we get these very small pull focuses between the two, which is really cool to say those don't happen naturally in an animatic. They have to be manually done. And so as we pan past Odysseus' shoulder back into a close-up of Hermes, he gives the camera a little smirk as he goes into the next section.
I've been waiting for Dangerous for a long time, and Troy Doherty never disappoints. As Hermes arrives, we find the wind bag has been put back into play. Seems that Iolaus felt real bad for what happened to Athena. As we get hit with them, Hermes' instruments, that is a real word, I promise, he tells Odysseus that this is it. This is the final second chance that he's being given. He's being given a final option. This right here is his one last chance. What sort of plan is it? And why has Hermes waited so long to say it?
The next animatic we get is from Gwendy, or NS2D Studios, with assistance from Drawmisu, Camalemsy, Nathan Kuan, and Novi, which unfortunately I wasn't able to find anything about, so apologies for not being able to link any personal accounts to this animatic. Also apologies for any mispronunciations. So we open with a full body shot of Hermes rising up to the center of frame carrying his caduceus, which he spins into the air as we pan following it as it shrinks and he catches it in the palm of his hand, becoming an amulet that he wears. And as he does some 80s boogie to the camera, we pan past him to the back of Odysseus, who quickly turns to face the camera holding his sword, as the background fades from the sky to his raft. And we see this continuous hero shot of the raft that Odysseus is on alongside Hermes, as he starts out by battling these tentacles, which could be from a creature like a kraken, or it could even be referencing Scylla, who is known for having her weird, tentacles. And as we pan into Hermes' hand, we match cut into the next scene where we see Odysseus battling harpies as we still have this continuous hero shot going around. Which is interesting because so far in the musical, Odysseus hasn't fought any harpies. So maybe this is just a reference to just Greek mythology as a whole and not specifically Odysseus' journey. Or it's not referencing anything at all and he's just fucking fighting harpies. And as we finish our 180-degree rotation, we wipe into Odysseus lassoing what I think is a kelpie. Or again, it's referencing the horse form that we have seen Poseidon in previously in the musical. Though, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if Kelpie are in Greek mythology, as I know they come from Celtic mythology, so I might just be shoving mythologies together here. If I am, my bad. And wiping once again into the next scene, we see Odysseus going full caveman brain on some sharks as he's beating them with an oar. And as Odysseus hits that home run, we swipe into the next scene where he's sat relaxing looking at the stars, which is my personal favourite scene from this animatic. And as Hermes blows us all a kiss, we see lastly Odysseus fighting a hydra, which we can tell that it is implied to be a hydra based on how Odysseus fights in this animatic. For the few short frames we do see the Hydra, we see Odysseus chop one of its heads off before burning the stump with his torch, clearly implying that this is a Hydra because if you didn't burn the stump, more heads would grow back. And with the final swipe of this animatic, we come back to the daytime as we see Hermes and Odysseus just broing it out on their raft, living their best life, ending this animatic off, hitting cool character poses. I don't know why I chose this to be my character pose.
As the music slows down and mellows out a bit, we hear the same melody sang by Aeolus in Keep Your Friends Close, which is ironic since Odysseus no longer has any friends to keep close. Hermes and the Winions explain that if the bag is opened once more, he won't have another chance to try. His home will be blocked from him permanently. Also, this Winion is voiced by Jorge's sister. We got the whole family in the musical. Hell yeah!
And the next gorgeous animatic and last animatic of this song is made by the wonderfully talented L. Crafts. We start with a medium shot of Hermes in his upside down Spider-Man kiss pose, that or he's just lording over the fact that he can fly, before we cut to some Winions, including the wonderful Princess Winion, who deliver the wind bag to Hermes, as he comes in from the right hand side of the screen, collecting it off them before offering it out back to Odysseus with the same instructions that Aeolus gave Odysseus all the way back in the Storm Saga. And so as Hermes extends the bag towards Odysseus, we get this close-up of the bag as we pan inwards before fading into an establishing shot of the storm that is inside the bag. And as we see the storm raging on, we get these wonderful Grease, somewhat Queen music video-esque moments with the Winions and Princess Winion fading in to sing their lines, and we get this close-up floating head shot of Hermes in the middle of the storm singing so graciously to the camera. And as he sings so passionately, closing his eyes for that extra oomph of detail, the choir of Winions takes up the screen as we fade into Odysseus, who is taking this offer far more seriously than Hermes is. And as we sit with this medium shot of Odysseus contemplating the offer that's been presented in front of him, we quickly pan into an extreme close-up of Odysseus's eyes as he locks the fuck in. Apologies for being that close, my bad. And as he opens his eyes with his vocals coming into the song, we start this long, slow pan out as Odysseus sings about his growing confidence as it is revealed that he has agreed and has taken the bag from Hermes. We also get this nice little zoom in of the Winion princess that is actually played by Jorge's sister, which is super cool that he's got his whole family involved in this. And we get these insane kind of action shots with these super unique angles, which to me is kind of reminiscent of those suit-up montages that are in action movies, as we see Odysseus preparing for the journey ahead, as we get these medium shots of him coming to the other side of the raft, before a close-up in profile of Odysseus looking out into the horizon, before turning back to Hermes with this over-the-shoulder shot, angled high to show Hermes in the sky, but also to give a sense of superiority that Hermes has in this situation, mainly because he's not stuck on a raft. It's not meant to represent Hermes overpowering or belittling Odysseus in any way here, which is proven by the next two shots of Odysseus in a medium shot bowing to Hermes, before cutting to a medium shot of Hermes saying not to thank him. And it's the fact that both of these angles are in the same medium shot that truly shows us that to some degree these two characters view each other as equals. As we zoom out, Hermes drops that final piece of knowledge that he isn't the one that fought for Odysseus, so that he shouldn't receive any of the thanks. And he flies off into the distance, leaving Odysseus to himself.
The whole song lays out the plan for Odysseus to finally, for realsies this time, get back home. Keeping the windbag closed, fighting off monsters, which has become a trivial task, yet still some struggles for him, as all he has to do is just keep on moving. When the part where Odysseus starts singing about danger being his friend really shows us that even after 10 years of war and another 10 or so years on the sea trying to get back home, Odysseus has developed so much to be this straightforward thinking, cunning master of his own destiny that can take on any monster that comes his way. Speaking of monsters, one gets its very own song. Charybdis. This song is very simple in nature, and it just lays out Odysseus' whole plan of how to outsmart and outmaneuver this behemoth from Greek mythology, a process that he has become very acquainted with over the course of the Odyssey. The character's power is usually shown in the way their vocals are used, and in this song, Charybdis doesn't even get a single word to say, which makes sense because they do spend the whole song just sucking in water into their mouths, so they can't exactly do that other, you know? The lyrics are very reminiscent of when Odysseus would call out and sing to his men the orders of how to attack, their plans, their tactics. But now, it's just him, on his own. Odysseus is stuck just monologuing his own plan to Charybdis and just kind of dangling it over their head, I guess, because he just says exactly how he's going to defeat him as he's defeating him. As hype as this song is, especially in the "Oh, bring it on" part, it does seem to be more like a traveler song, similar to Full Speed Ahead and Storm, rather than the other boss fight songs like Survive, Ruthlessness, Done For, Scylla, Fight Little Wolf, and God Games, which is why I admitted it from our "Which is your favorite song from the Saga" polls. Which is why I wish you could add more than 4 options, but unfortunately, this is what we have to deal with. But when you pair Charybdis the song with Charybdis the animatics, ooh, I rises to hell yeah levels of hype. Brandon, take it away.
The first, somewhat short animatic we get of Charybdis is made by the incredibly talented Mircsy, whose name I have pronounced wrong multiple times in multiple epic videos, and for that I want to apologize. It is Mircsy, not Mercy. I'm sorry. Which starts us with this almost drone-like shot starting at an establishing distance before coming and panning in to a medium shot as Odysseus faces away from the camera, establishing to the reader or viewer, us, that something is about to happen. And something fucking does. As Charybdis them fucking selves come smashing out of the fucking ocean as we pan up this towering figure flying up into the air before the camera points back down, showing how tiny Odysseus is in comparison to Charybdis. As we quickly zoom back into Odysseus and the raft as it goes underwater, splashing us into the next shot of Odysseus hanging on to the mast of his raft, looking underwater at Charybdis. Which, as someone who is stupid scared of deep water, I hate this. I love all the animatics and I love how creative and spectacular they all are. I fucking hate this. And not because it's bad, because it is so genuinely terrifying to me. And as Odysseus uses his insane core muscles to fucking hoist himself and the raft back the right way, we spin transition into the next animatic. This next animatic is made by the incredible Tamattuta, as we get this insanely good foreground-background shot, half of it being taken up by a wide shot of Odysseus kind of surfing with his raft, and the background showing this whirlpool that Charybdis is making. Which, again, is a big fuck no from me. This whole section is just, it's too scary. And then we get this insane camera movement as it kind of pans over the raft, but also on like an angle. It kind of does like an ollie or like a kick flip over the raft, showing us Odysseus as he reacts to Charybdis' presence. As he tells Charybdis to basically go fuck themselves, as we pan closer and then back around to the first shot that is again split up into 2, before we break that barrier between the foreground and background as Odysseus points towards Charybdis, charging into the whirlpool. Now we see the foreground going to the side of the screen, even taking up parts of the top of the frame, as he pushes one last time, breaking that barrier between the foreground and background, smashing into the next animatic. That's right, it's animatic back to back to back. This next insane animatic is made by the incredible Anni Flamma. As we have this wide shot of Odysseus and the raft as he's sailing straight towards Charybdis, dodging left and right, which my own personal brain rot made me think of Subway Surfers, though infinitely cooler. Before we zoom into Odysseus' face as he once again locks the fuck in. As we pan to the other side of the raft, we see Odysseus lean down before breaking off one of the logs, making his raft smaller. And then as we pan from the side to the back of the raft, we see him do it again on the other side, making it almost like a surfboard. Before we finish our 360, as we see Odysseus start to take down his sail, and then we reverse our 360, showing the new raft, which reminds me very heavily of Treasure Planet, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, and this next sequence, I will actually just show you my reaction while I was reminding myself what this animatic looks like. God, that's so fucking cool! Like, holy fuck, Annie. That shit was insane. We get this over-the-shoulder shot of Odysseus smashing his way into the center of the whirlpool before the waves come crashing over and they settle and he is back sailing peacefully. Seriously though, such a cool fucking animatic. The change in animation style halfway through was incredible and such a unique and perfect choice to show the stress of the situation, but also the ferocity that Odysseus was attacking the problem in front of him with.
It's a great song, and it really shows how Odysseus has grown to be his own one-man army. Cunning, strategic, holding on, straightforward. He is finally here. If he just keeps moving, like Hermes told him, he'll finally make it home. So Odysseus has made it back to the part in Keep Your Friends Close. And now that Eurylochus isn't here to screw it all up and open the windbag, surely nothing could go wrong, right? Right? No? No?
No! The first animatic of Get in the Water is made by the incredible Wolfy the Witch, who blesses us with their gorgeous art style, setting the tone for such an incredible song. We have this establishing shot of Odysseus from behind and Ithaca in front of him. It's beautiful. He's made it. We even get a close-up to medium shot of Odysseus leaning on the ropes of his raft, looking romantically towards Ithaca as he sings about Penelope, his love. It's so rom-com, I love it to pieces, it's so cute! And of course it is interrupted as Odysseus is knocked from his romantic lean as the waves become uneasy. As we cut to the reflection of Odysseus in the water, as we get these two reaction shots of Odysseus knowing what's to come.
To the sounds of crashing waves and slamming down on piano keys, heavily contrasting to the intro of Ruthlessness, we see Poseidon arrive with a more suppressed rage than we have seen any of the gods portray, with haunting coarse vocals letting us feel the menacing aura emanating from him.
There you are, coward.
Oh, Stephen Rodriguez, how I've missed your voice. Instead of just rearing up and thrashing Odysseus off his poor excuse of a raft, he decides he's going to get Odysseus to end his own life by getting in the water and letting himself drown. Otherwise, he'll flood Ithaca, killing Penelope and Telemachus, rendering all of Odysseus' sacrifices and pain and suffering meaningless. And in addition to that, he would wipe his whole kingdom off of the face of the earth, which means that he would be left with nothing. No son, no wife, no home, no title, because he can't be the king of Ithaca without Ithaca. Now he's faced with him dying, or his loved ones dying. You know, why is it that Odysseus is always given these choices of, hey, choose this life, or choose your own? You know, it's quite strange that this has happened so many times across the Odyssey.
This next animatic is made by the wonderful Ainhoa Velasco. Again, apologies on any mispronunciations. As we start with an extreme close-up of Poseidon's eye as he starts to lose his temper with Odysseus, before we zoom out to the beat of the song, showing more and more of Odysseus' predicament, with these gorgeous illustrations of the water as it comes smashing up either side of Odysseus' raft, with Poseidon standing above him. We cut to a medium shot of Odysseus holding on to his mast as he freezes in fear, not able to reply or even express in his face. He is just trapped. And as Poseidon continues berating Odysseus, telling him to get in the water, we get this low-angle shot showing his superiority in this moment, as he spins his trident in triumph against Odysseus, now having him cornered, knowing that he is in full control. We have these two shots, one from a medium and another one from a close-up, of again Odysseus reacting emotionless. He is stuck in fear, not able to do anything. Before once again we get this hero shot going round and round the raft, but this time, instead of showing Odysseus' triumphs as he gets home from the previous animatic, we're just seeing these pillars of water smash up all around his raft. Poseidon showing Odysseus that at any moment he could make one of those pillars destroy his raft. He could make Odysseus drown any second, but he wants him to do it himself, which is proven even more by the final shot of this animatic, where we see from the POV of Poseidon, he reaches out his hand and he squishes Odysseus. And as he does, these pillars come smashing up either side, showing truly how much control he has over this situation.
After seeing Odysseus take on Charybdis with such ease, seeing his reaction here now really shows how the situation is all the more dire. Odysseus is a man of cunning, and cunning means you know exactly when you're already beaten. Similar to the first time he faced off with Poseidon, and when he faced off against Zeus, all Odysseus can do is beg and plead for mercy and forgiveness so that he can finally just get back to his son and wife. Also, with how quiet and raspy Odysseus' voice is, you can really see just how much this journey has taken out of him, especially when Poseidon mentions how his son and wife will drown.
Your wife and your son will drown. No!
As Odysseus gets his own little verse to plead with Poseidon, and he gets to talk about after 10 long years. You know what, I've given up with the numbers on how long people have been places. Anyways, it's been a long time, and Poseidon should really not have held a grudge for this long, but here we are. Odysseus says they should just forget their differences, part ways, go home. They've suffered heavy losses each. Isn't it time they forgives? But Poseidon, being the ever stubborn and prideful god that he is, responds with,
I can't.
And then Jorge goes ahead and demonstrates how to musically show the most Dragon Ball Z power-up moment of the entire musical with this next part. Given the whole God move, shatter the ocean special ability, Poseidon goes to prove that ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. And once again, we see the stark contrast between Poseidon's self-righteous executions and ruthlessness and this very personal vendetta against Odysseus. In Ruthlessness, Poseidon says, "Die," in a more muted, threatening, yet just matter-of-fact kind of way, but here in Get in the Water, using the same terminology Jorge used for Zeus in God Games, Poseidon goes beast mode.
The final animatic of Get in the Water is made by Luiza, Xavier, Mazzei. Again, for the 100th time, apologies for any mispronunciations. As we open with this close-up of Poseidon as he goes, as Sean said, beast mode. As we get these intercut shots spaced between black screens with the lyrics shaking, showing that the vendetta and anger that Poseidon has at Odysseus transcends that border. He's so angry that he's shaking the subtext. And as he enters his Titan shifter form, we pull back and we see Poseidon use his god move, Shatter the Ocean. Which, as a big anime lover, this is singing to my soul. I want to know the power system of the Epic the Musical universe. I also want to know where I would stack in that and why I would be a power level of 1. The god move, Shatter the Ocean, has Poseidon lose control somewhat of his own body, as we see Poseidon tweaking out at the bottom of the screen as he slams down a trident made of water in his Titan shifter form. Odysseus gets dragged under the waves. And we get these great impact frames as we're panning across Odysseus being dragged under. But it's not that he just gets pulled under. He's hit with so much force that he is pushed past the surface as the water is displaced around him and he falls beneath before it settles above him. And we see him sink below into the darkness. As the further he goes, this trident is still pushing him, still attacking him, still taking him under.
Well, Odysseus is dead. We hear a chorus rise from the underworld to meet him, as his mother, Eurylochus, Polites, all welcome him with open arms. Even all his dead crewmates rally behind him as he sinks down below the water. After all he's lost and all he's been through, everyone is now waiting for him to finally arrive in the underworld. But you know who else is waiting for Odysseus? Telemachus' mom! As we hear Odysseus' theme rock in on electric guitar and accentuated by drum hits, we also hear Aeolus' theme playing with the vocals from the underworld as we see it's hooked onto Poseidon's trident. How convenient. Oh, you thought the parallels between Ruthlessness and Get in the Water had ended? Well, now we have Odysseus fighting back against Poseidon in the exact same way. All he's gotta do is open this bag. If it wasn't clear, the 600 souls from the underworld are lending Odie their energy to create a spirit bomb. Except not really, he just wears the bag as a jetpack to go and fight back against Poseidon. To the sound of his crew chanting 600 men, and Odysseus carries the melody that Athena sang in Little Wolf, as well as, of course, this being some form of Full Speed Ahead reprise. This mortal has had it with these monkey-fighting gods and this Monday to Friday Odyssey.
And to represent what Sean just talked about, we have this incredible animatic from Drawing Angie, which opens with, again, another close-up of the eyes, which is the 4th or 5th time this shot has been used during this saga. We see Odysseus' eyes glowing red as we pan out, showing the dark abyss deep underwater. Odysseus' eyes being the only things that are truly visible, before a blue light glows and illuminates the side of Odysseus' face, revealing, as Sean mentioned, the wind bag. And so as we pan back and forth between the wind bag and then Odysseus, he reaches out, grabs the bag, and ties it to himself in a jetpack style. And as he pulls the cord, he goes on one hell of a joyride in this beautiful wide shot as he slams his way through the surface going into the next animatic, and definitely, like, logistically speaking, gets the bends, right? And as we slam into this next animation, I'm gonna be real. I personally don't know the widespread opinion of this animation, mainly because I stay off almost all social media. But for me personally, switching to 3D was very jarring. Not in a bad sense, this animation is done very well, and the models used and made are incredible, especially for the fact that this saga came out a month after the other one. But what I will say is that there are certain parts in this animation that I feel don't super hit the mark, which I will explain more in detail as we go through this, but I just wanted to explain that is what I will be doing, and not that I dislike this animation, I just don't really think it's my cup of tea. However, that is not me saying that it is bad. It is super well done and better than anything I could ever achieve in my entire life. And so going into it now, this 3D animation is made by Vladislav Art House and LTHS Studios. We start with an establishing shot as Odysseus slams up to the center of screen before we pan into a close-up as he turns to the camera, revealing the rage on his face. Panning back out, we cut to Poseidon, who shows that he is ready for this fight in his powered-up Titan form. And we have this beautifully composed shot of Odysseus in the center bottom of the screen, kind of where my microphone is right now, as Poseidon and his Titan form takes up the rest of the screen, imposing Odysseus while Odysseus challenges him. Very reminiscent of games like God of War, where you have to fight things significantly larger than yourself. And then we cut to, unfortunately, a shot I didn't super gel with. I get the concept, and I have seen the concept video for this shot, and it is a super cool idea. I just think the final piece didn't quite have enough time for it to look spectacular. As we have Odysseus flying as he pans to one side, doing a barrel roll as Poseidon's Titan form attacks him with a trident. I think the only issue this shot kind of has is a lack of motion blur or lack of shape, which I know seems like super nitpicky things. However, without them, the shot kind of feels slow. Like the actual attack from the trident aims what looks like 10 feet below Odysseus. So the sense of presence feels a little lost in this shot. And then to talk about a good shot, which comes almost directly after, we have this bombardment that Odysseus lands on Poseidon, with him coming in from so many different angles, and we have that motion blur that I mentioned, and Odysseus looks fast and quick and like he's in control of this part of the fight, leaving Poseidon unable to react, and having the camera quickly bounce to different angles based on the beat of the song emphasizes that speed and power and precision with these strikes, which I feel like the previous following shot was kind of lacking. And then we have this panning full shot of Odysseus and Poseidon clenched up as their weapons are bound together, pressing against each other, trying to outmuscle the opponent, which again I feel lacks just a certain oomph to it, which isn't super noticeable as the camera is panning as we have that sort of movement going on, but becomes much harder to not notice when the camera becomes stagnant as we have these two great characters pushing back and forth just a little bit. And then again, to show how fucking cool this style can look, we have this bombardment from Odysseus as Poseidon is stun locked in the middle of frame, just getting jolted around by the continuous strikes. And we end it off with Poseidon falling onto the rocks. I will reiterate and say this animation is, again, infinitely better than anything I could ever make ever, and you should take anything I say negatively with 10,000 grains of salt, because they're not intended to be negative. I'm just pointing out parts that I thought worked quite well, and other parts that I feel like just don't quite have that sauce, you know? For such an intense fight, I feel like those two shots that I mentioned I'm missing that motion blur. I'm missing that shake, those sparks, those little details that really put the oomph into such strong moments. I know this was done on such a short time frame and made by only a couple of people. And so in that sense, this is ridiculously impressive and this is fantastic. And overall, this animation is very well done and super clean, but I just felt like I should mention that those two kind of shots, they just felt like they were missing a little something. However, moving on, because NS2D Studios, including the assistance of everyone previously mentioned, has gifted us with a fully animated section that would feel super wrong to deconstruct on my own, so we're doing it together at the same time.
As Odysseus stands victorious over a literal god, Poseidon still can't help but jeer.
We get these shots following Odysseus' movements as we focus on the beaten god. First, in a low angle, eye level with Poseidon as Odie walks away, we cut to a close-up showing that jeer on his face, before cutting back out to an over-the-shoulder shot, this time focused on Odysseus, leaving Poseidon blurred, ignored by his adversary.
Poseidon sings to the tune of Storm that Odysseus has blocked his way home with the one tool they used to defeat him.
Panning up to show us that very storm, before we come crashing back down to a side profile close-up of Poseidon, still taunting the victorious Odysseus until he says one word too many. And we see Odysseus in a medium shot silhouetted by the lightning stare back into the camera, eyes glowing red.
But oh boy, remember those horns. Odysseus is a different beast now, and Jorge digs into a part of his voice that has never seen the light of day.
Odysseus moves towards the camera as we cut to an eye-level shot of Poseidon using that same momentum as it's carried over from the previous shot.
The different beast motif is accompanied by this piano that would usually be used to represent Poseidon's upper hand against Odysseus. But oh, how the tables have turned.
Shooting from a low angle to imply power, we see Odysseus from Poseidon's point of view. This monster that stands before him. As Odysseus picks up Poseidon's trident, we call back to his previous close-up, though this time the only emotion on his face is fear.
We hear the faintest riff of Odysseus' theme before...
Smash! The trident crashes into Poseidon, now soaked in his blood. The background fading in as this endless cycle of pain is his current reality.
Odysseus berates and eviscerates Poseidon's body, singing the underworld as he reminds him of all that he's sacrificed. How many lives have been lost just so that Odysseus can be where he is right now?
And with probably the most brutal shot of the whole of everything, looking at you, Scylla, we have this long, seemingly endless wide shot of Odysseus and Poseidon as Odie is tearing into him, both lyrically and physically.
In retaliation, Poseidon cries out wordlessly with his vocals hitting the tunes of that storm that he refuses to call off. But the onslaught of trident attacks proves too much, even for the proud Poseidon. The amount of layers piled on here are extraordinary.
With all the themes of Odysseus' journeys across the seas,
into the underworld,
the suffering he's withstood,
all the visions Tiresias told him,
the amount of gods that have told him to close his heart.
We hear Poseidon please silenced.
As Odysseus shoves the trident into his mouth,
Odysseus cries out how this is all Poseidon's fault.
Poseidon responds by calling Odysseus a monster.
Odysseus doesn't show any sign of stopping.
Until finally, Odysseus spits Poseidon's own words back in his face.
All right.
And the last 2 shots of this animatic are Poseidon in a medium shot as it pans up, showing him bloodied, defeated, on the verge of not death because he can't die, but in a incredible amount of pain. Of course, all of that is silhouetted because it would be so gross to actually see. And the last shot is again this long, wide angle showing Poseidon on the floor and Odysseus standing above him as Odysseus turns and walks away, dropping some of the hardest lines ever written.
How will you sleep at night? Next to my wife.
This, I do not say this lightly, is my favorite saga of the whole musical. I don't even think that the final saga will make me change my mind about this. This had everything. There was the heartbreaking opener on Calypso's island, which obviously Calypso, my second favorite character, going through just the most heartbreaking mix of emotions I've ever felt in my life. Straight away followed by my favorite character of the whole musical, Hermes, just rocking up and throwing ass around like there is no tomorrow. I mean, the amount of animatics for this saga's release. Jorge spoiled us. The animators spoiled us. We have been treated to far too much. We are like this close, just getting a full animated series by the amount of stuff that we have gotten from just this saga alone. Vengeance Saga has been incredible. Like, it is the one that I have rewatched over and over and over again, just for my own pleasure. It's not for reviewing, not for picking out the bits and details. I've just been listening to it way too much that it is probably just living inside of my head now. And it's been absolutely incredible to see just how the fandom and the community around Epic the Musical has grown, expanded, and it's becoming, hear me out, don't get too scared, it's almost becoming mainstream. You know, our first video that we made on it was the best musical that doesn't exist, because at the time it was just those few concept albums that had existed for a couple of years and no one had said anything about it on YouTube, and now it's everywhere I look. And that's probably because I make sure that it's everywhere I look, because I search for it all the time. Epic the Musical has just been so great to be with, and just to see now in this saga, it feels like being in the late game of a video game that you've played, and with all the musical ideas that have been reimagined and reinforced. It's like looking back at the tutorial mechanics that are like second nature to you now. Like, I can hear the storm and it just, yeah, I know immediately that's exactly what I'm looking for. But yeah, it has been incredible to see how Epic the Musical has gone ahead and become this different beast now. Like, I'm seeing memes on my Instagram reels at this point. I'm making my own memes now. Myself and Brandon literally took a lot longer on this saga, especially reviewing it, because we just kept going back. We just kept going back to different clips and making so many memes out of them.
Wait. Wait!
Even Jorge has posted his very first meme post about his own musical that is honestly just, it's now at a turning point where, it's become a household name, this old Epic the Musical thing now. One more saga to put in the books. And I have to go wait until, I believe, Christmas. The greatest Christmas present for all. The end of Epic the Musical. And it's so, so near. But wait, with all this hype for the final saga of Epic the Musical, how will you sleep at night? Next to my wife.
Wait, am I supposed to be his wife? I don't know who Sean's referring to here. Is he referring to me? Okay, but for real, the reason I'm adding on this final little bit to the video that has had a perfect ending like 3 separate times is because we made a post saying that this video would come out on the 30th, and as you can see, it's come out on the 1st. That is only my fault. I have been ill as a dog for the past couple of days, and I just didn't have it in me to get the video out on the 30th. But it is here on the 1st, so I am sorry, but I hope that you enjoyed.